PRovoke Media podcast. I'm Diana Marszalek. I am senior reporter with PRovoke Media. And the global pandemic, as we are still very much immersed in, has put healthcare at the center stage. At this moment, we're seeing the complex interplay between health tech, providers, pharma, policymakers, and other stakeholders at a global scale. And even before 2020, healthcare was quickly becoming one of the most compelling areas for public relations. So with that in mind, we partnered with Real Chemistry, which was formerly W2O, on a series called Healthy Bites. In each episode, we have a quick chat with a healthcare expert to provide a digestible what you should know to help the industry stay ahead of the rapidly changing public relations and communications landscape around healthcare. And because healthcare touches every aspect of our lives these days, we hope these 10 minutes conversations will be useful, no matter what your day-to-day role is. Today, in this episode, we talked to Emily Poe. Hello, Emily, who is the Group President of Integrated Communications at Real Chemistry. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. This is a great topic. I'm excited.
Well, it's a big topic, right? So we're gonna.
Yep.
I mean, I'd like to start off with what you can tell us about the demand for healthcare, because at this moment, healthcare comes, both in terms of what the increase in the demand for healthcare comes, but also where it's coming from, because I imagine you're seeing it from non-traditional clients or.
Yeah, absolutely. And, healthcare communications has always been pretty highly in demand. But obviously when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, there was suddenly an intense need for new, more different ways to communicate. And, really about COVID, like how to get diagnosed, what a diagnosis meant, potential treatments, vaccinations, and then the science and policy implications behind all of that. But also when the world went virtual, not only did we need to figure out how to communicate about COVID itself, but healthcare, the rest of healthcare, like treating cancer, asthma, or multiple sclerosis, or sickle cell anemia, all of those health issues still needed to be communicated about, and now needed to be communicated differently. And audiences needed to be communicated differently. So for a company like ours, where communications was already living very much in the digital and virtual realm, we were in a great position to help our clients and their audiences navigate, and we saw great growth. Beyond that, though, with the increased and very needed and real focus on bringing equity into the mix, because health equity is central to all health, this is a place where we're excited to see companies now take a step back and ask hard questions and look for answers. And we're working really hard to be able to help them do that. So this is another area where we see high demand, and we're excited to bring on board people with diverse experiences and backgrounds who can help our teams counsel our clients on how to truly support change that will have a positive impact on addressing health inequity. And anyone who is at all interested in health or in inequity can't help to see the potential for the positive change as we come together there. So between all of those and many other factors, we're seeing unprecedented demand and growth within our client base, as well as in other areas like digital health, where the move to being virtual has created even more demand. So we've been in the lucky position to be able to be a bit picky about what we pursue and take on, and what maybe we don't. And most of our growth today actually comes from organic growth within existing client base.
Well, so when you talk about health equity, that can come from any company, that can come from policymakers, that can come from anybody. I mean,
exactly.
And it's almost like, everybody says everybody's a tech company now. To some degree, I guess everybody's a healthcare company in some ways.
We absolutely say that, Diana. Yeah.
But for non-specialists in healthcare, it could be a little bit daunting. Could you provide us with sort of a look of what the healthcare landscape is? For those of us who are tuning in and need a takeaway, get a little better understanding of it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of lingo there, right? The healthcare landscape can seem confusing, and there's an alphabet soup of acronyms and lingo that can seem challenging, and that lingo that's associated with healthcare comes for sure can be intimidating. But truly, it's no more complex than you would see in any regulated industry like finance or technology or energy. And luckily for us, we have Google, for all of us in general. And that's where I tell everyone to start when they encounter a term or an acronym they don't know. And that's actually where I have, for the last 20 years, have always started to wrap my head around new concepts. But beyond that, I think one of the ways that makes healthcare communication seem even more challenging really is that language, right? The medical and scientific language that we might use. And so luckily for people who've majored in communications or English or Latin for that matter, and whose last science class maybe was all the way back in high school, some of these people are really comfortable exploring language and actually are some of the best healthcare communicators I've ever met and worked with. But for those who maybe don't feel as comfortable, and honestly, even for those of us who majored in science, came from a scientific background, we here at Real Chemistry have PhDs and MDs on staff who love to explain what some of the terms mean and help us get deeper into the science. We don't actually expect people to come here and know it all. We certainly don't. And also a positive consequence of the pandemic has been that so much more of the general public has been exposed to science and public health work, right? So like 2 years ago, who would have thought that mRNA would be a household term? Or, antibodies, like so many people now know that an antibody test will tell you if you once had COVID or if your vaccine is still active because you have circulating antibodies that could help fight future infection, or understand PCR or how it's different from an antigen test. So people really have a truly tremendous capacity to understand more about science and health than I think they often give themselves credit for.
Which is great. And also just the way the system works. Like, I don't know that Pfizer or Moderna or anything was a household name, before COVID, right? And to just, it really gave everybody an awareness of the process that I don't think, we would have rather not had to go through that, but it's an opportunity to see the process that I think a lot of people would have never had otherwise.
Exactly.
So what skills are most in demand? We talked about science. I know you go from MDs to English majors. So what skills are in demand? And I guess there's a lot of pooling of skills like.
Yeah, at its most fundamental, we're looking for really smart communications generalists if you don't have a healthcare background. So people who are interested and engaged in science, they don't have to be scientific experts, but having an interest is enough, particularly at junior levels. Strong and creative writers, accountable leaders who can lead internal teams and partner effectively with clients. And honestly, healthcare is such a broad umbrella, as you mentioned, that there are many areas of specialty within it that you can explore. So corporate communications, product communications, brand communications, issues and crisis management, social media, influencer relations, thought leadership. The list truly goes on and on. So people with relevant experience in those areas or interest in those areas could do well to move into, what I would say is a high demand, but highly rewarding area. And especially right now, we're finding that people who excelled in corporate or technology related communications could give healthcare a look and be very successful, especially in many cases where those skill sets can be applied directly to healthcare communications, like within our digital health or health tech practice, our corporate communications specialty group, and our investor relations teams. If you're intellectually curious and you're driven by an interest in finding new ways to make the world a healthier place, those really are the people we're looking for, because that's what we come here every day to do.
Well, you sort of stole my last question, because I was going to ask you if lay people really could make the link. People are so looking for changes and interests, and everything is in flux in terms of the industry and staffing. And could they make the leap?
Yeah, and we actually have programs. We have a program that we call the hybrid program that is designed to help people with certain types of backgrounds make the leap into areas of our company. We actually do it within different groups within our company. So our goal is if you're a strong, communicator or marketer, to find ways to help you grow and develop your career. And sometimes we do that from people who don't come from a healthcare background, and we have, healthcare 101s, pharma 101s, pharma marketing 101. So we work really hard to try to make it as accessible as possible.
Excellent. So once this runs, you will be flooded.
Good. We're excited to hear from folks who might be interested in working with us.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time. It was a fun conversation, and to get just the big picture, and we'll go from there in terms of boiling down in the future.
Great. Thanks so much.